For some reason, my video just disappeared. It must think I have two Zoom meetings open. Let's see if that. So weird. Oh, frustrating. All right, I'm gonna leave and come back. I
Okay.
think you guys hopefully should still be here.
Yes. We'll try again.
So I'm hoping I can figure out how to leave without actually. Oh,
Oh,
I
here
came
you
back.
are.
Woo!
Great.
Yay. All right. So we are just for those of you who are just starting to listen in, we're getting started here with Joseph Gaines, University of Tennessee. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we have Stephen Shambach, both graduates of our program, who's coming to us from FSU. And you guys are just talking about the difficulties of the first year because you had to move to a new place and get settled and face logistical issues. Did you want to say anything more about that or just continue the conversation as you would like?
Don't rent anything sight unseen. I'll say that.
Mhm.
And it's incredible to me how much life, uh, life issues can impact the program. At least for me personally, the classrooms often where I find the least challenges, and so getting to a place early, not waiting until the last minute. I think just the more foundational things anyone can have in place before the start date, the better. And of course that's offset by cost considerations, right? It's expensive to move someplace at the beginning of a summer when there's a late August start date. So there's obviously economic considerations, but I would say um, the sooner you can make the transition to where you're going for your program, the better. And to familiarize yourself with their surroundings, to get familiar and comfortable with the community, it is a big help.
Yeah. No, I would say, thinking about, uh, my thought process, um, even before I started, before I decided where I was going to go, the kinds of things that Stephen's bringing up are important to help you even decide where you might even kind of bother to apply because it is a process. And um, there were places that I wanted to apply. I thought the program was really interesting, and I thought the teachers there I would like to work with. And just thinking about simple things like I'm not going to be able to travel easily to see family if I go to that program. These are things that it's not the fun part to think about, but it can be simple things like that, or like Stephen was saying, uh, financial things can also come into effect. So that's a big part of sort of even just narrowing the field that you're even looking at. You kind of have to have a sort of realistic conversation with yourself about what do you feel like you can do and what is a too big of a barrier for you to overcome.
Yeah, how are you guys affording your programs? I mean, did you get much support in terms of graduate assistantships, or did you walk into or accept a package? I'll probably ask these questions again later, but how did you navigate that, or how are you supplementing what obviously is probably not enough to live on, I suspect.
Yeah, I can go first on that. So that was something that I did not realize before I started applying that was part of the equation. I thought, uh, the only option for all levels of programs was just you pay for it, or get scholarships, things like that. Um, so I didn't even realize when I wanted to get a PhD that some programs offer essentially what feels like a small salary. I think there's probably a different technical term. It's a stipend or a package or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so and that was actually part of how I decided between schools was uh, the ones that I got accepted to offered packages, and one of them was pitiful to say the least. And it would, and they also encourage you not to work on the side, which that's something to manage school by school, what their expectations are there. But um, the program I accepted had a stipend that would amount to I mean, something similar to a small salary for a year. Um, and then I'm in the position where I have a partner who also works, so that supplements our income. But it's not, we're not going to these programs to make big money, so that is definitely a big consideration.
Yeah. Are your courses, was your tuition paid for as a part of your package?
So in the package that I accepted, the tuition's paid for. I don't know how common this is, but they even said if I wanted to take extra classes, if I was that crazy, then they'd be happy to pay for those as well.
Wow.
Um, but so yeah, a lot of things are covered. There's a lot of their textbooks are digital, or you buy them secondhand. So that's kind of how that works.
Great. Hi, Chelsea.
Hello.
Hi. I don't think you know Joseph or Stephen.
No.
Chelsea graduated, I think it was 2017. Is that correct, Chelsea?
Yes, that sounds right.
Yes. And so she has finished her PhD, and
Yes.
you are currently an assistant professor in Charlotte.
Charleston.
Charleston, I'm sorry.
Yes. You're fine.
So say some more about that. Like, what was your path? Where did you go to school?
Yeah.
And part of what brings you here. And we should have people joining us. We hit this
Yeah.
5 o'clock mark, and we've already started recording. So,
Okay.
Chelsea, first of all, you look great. Congratulations
Thanks.
on your pregnancy. I'm so
Thank
excited for
you.
you.
Yes.
And she is one of our success stories. So we're excited to have you back.
Yes. Happy to be back. So I went to University of Florida in Gainesville for my bachelor's in English. And then I attended UNF, the wonderful University of North Florida, for my master's of arts in English. And so the path that led me to the English PhD was an interesting one. I was the type of student, I took a gap year between my PhD and my master's, and it wasn't intentional, was not for lack of trying. I applied um, during my last year in the master's program, and looking back, can say I wasn't as focused as I needed to be. A big piece of advice I would give to students who are thinking about getting a PhD: know your reasoning for wanting the PhD and know what your plan is for that PhD while you were in that program. So, a big part of why I think I was successful in the second round of applications versus the first is I was focused on what I could bring to each individual school that I applied to. I also did the research of looking at the faculty at each university and saying, this is a professor that I would work with specifically if you admitted me into your English program for this PhD. And so I had an idea of the type of research their faculty was already doing, books they'd written, or just projects they were currently working on, things that were pending. Some of them, they were in the field enough that they had like YouTube or podcast interviews already. So I was able to dig a little bit and bring those things up and like cover letters, or in my application, the different components, whatever university it was that they asked for when you're kind of selling yourself or marketing yourself to that program. So that I feel like really helped. I personalized my application more that second round versus that first round. The first round, it was way too general. I knew I wanted to do children's literature, and I knew I was interested in like African American studies, But my second round of applications, I got way more specific, and I think that really helped me be successful.
Yeah, Layla, welcome. We have two, Joseph and Stephen, who are both in PhD programs currently. We have Chelsea, who graduated from UNF in 2017, is currently an assistant professor after completing her PhD at the University of South Carolina. So she was just talking about her job search, Layla, not your job search, but your application process to the
Yeah,
PhD program. And
yeah.
Layla is in our program currently, and you're thinking about a PhD. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. I'm
Yeah.
trying to gain as much information as I can right now.
Yeah.
I know it's a bit of an uphill battle.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and back up a little bit. Let's both have Joseph and Stephen, if you guys could talk about your process of how you decided, like, and Chelsea, you can speak to this too, but how did you decide where to apply? It seems like that would be tricky since you have, I think you would have to have like, these are the really tough ones. These are like the
Yeah.
easier ones. Joseph, you were mentioning how the location was important. Both of you were mentioning finances, that you have to think about travel, connection to your family, the possibility of living in this place versus some other place. So, both Joseph and Stephen, could you go, one of you, go ahead and talk about your search process, and then Chelsea, we'll come back to you.
Sure. Very similar to Chelsea. I was very mindful of who the major professors were, and I familiarized myself with seminal works or current articles for each and every professor at the seven different universities that I applied to. But in addition to that, a lot of it came down to relationships that I had developed at UNF. And so with Dr. James Beasley, my mentor, and he's good friends with Therese Graben at Florida State University. Likewise, I worked at Flagler College for someone who happened to be previous director of college composition at Florida State University. So why I mention that is it is important what you know, it's important who you know, and having connections with professors. And so a lot of the places I applied were places recommended to me by professors at UNF because of either their personal relationships or because they were familiar with the program or because UNF had previous students go into those programs and they had been successful. So the relationships are really important, I think. And then in terms of deciding once I got accepted, I did not take the best financial package. I actually could have gone to ASU and taught one fewer courses in the spring and made about $5,000 more a year. But I did not see myself living in the Phoenix Valley. I did not want to live among a million people. Tallahassee has a college town vibe like Gainesville, and that was a big that ended up being the ultimate deciding factor for me.
Thank you. Joseph?
Yeah, so when it came to kind of figuring out what schools am I going to apply to and how do I choose between those, it's my process was very similar to what Stephen was talking about, and um, one thing that I kind of discovered late in the in my process. So it was I figured this out before I started applying, but I only realized this shortly before I started. Was what Chelsea and Stephen actually both have talked about is having an idea of specifically what you want to do in your program. And it's maybe not necessarily that you have to know exactly what you want to be when you grow up, but like Chelsea mentioned, children's literature. Stephen, you were talking about rhetoric and composition studies, and professors of yours and ours that are in those things. And that was something that I kind of figured out late in the game, and I would not suggest that to anybody listening, or anybody with us. You know, you want to have, because that's going to help you decide on these colleges, because everyone was saying, it matters what you're going to study there, and you need to know what you're looking at. So if you're very excited about 20th century literature, and that's you know, your lifeblood essentially, and but maybe there's nobody at a particular college who teaches that, or is going to work with you on that could be a big deciding factor. And it'll help you also find programs. I mean, I would go online, and once I realized, okay, these are the things I want to study, then I was able to go on, you know, different colleges' websites and look at their faculty, for example, and see, are there people that work here that would be able to work with me in this subject. So it's beyond just, you know, PhD in English, or PhD in composition, or whatever it might be. So that was pretty important. And I think it could have been a little smoother if like some of our friends, I had a better idea before I got started applying. But with that being said, just because somebody's blurb only says a few things about them, that doesn't mean that that's, you know, all they're capable of. So you can definitely reach out to people and professors, and try and take the opportunity to talk to them about what they're working on now. That's something that I did when I thought I had something that I wanted to apply to. I reached out to professors. I think I got a response from all of the ones that I reached out to. And it was a quick message. I'm not trying to you know, take a ton of their time, but I would say, hi, I'm interested in the program, and I see that you work in these fields. Are you still working in that, and do you see yourself working in those things in the near future? And some of the responses I got were, no, I'm retiring. So, you know, it was, you know, if that was the one person I wanted to work with at a place, that might be like, okay, well, maybe that's not top of my list anymore. But those little conversations can be very helpful in deciding.
Good, thank you. Chelsea?
Yeah, so to your point, Joseph, I applied only to programs that would let me study children's literature as a PhD rather than an Ed.D. So something I learned in this process is most children's literature programs are through education. And so I knew I didn't want to be in the education sphere in that way. Like, I love teaching, but I don't want to teach how to teach specifically, especially when we're thinking like K-12. And so I had to find programs. I think at the time there were only 9 in the whole country that let you do children's lit, and they had children's lit faculty, and you could be an English PhD student still. And it wasn't like crossovers and all these things happening. And so that really narrowed it down for me. I remember telling my friends at the time, I was like, okay, these are my only shots. I don't know what else there is. Like, there's 9 schools. And so going in with an idea really helps. And also, if you're going to choose your path in that way, you have to know what's the path for you, because you're really narrowing it down. So I got into several, which was a blessing. And what helped me ultimately choose was one faculty. I reached out to some of them to say, I'm interested in what you do. There are people who do like graphic novels and comic books. There are people who publish in children's picture books, all kinds of things. And so that really helped. But also the money, as Stephen brings up. Ideally, you get offered funding, and USC had a good size package. And so I took it. They had a prospective like weekend situation where you could come in and meet other PhD students. Another PhD student who was current at the time hosted me. So I hung out with her friends. I had lunch with several people, met several professors. I had a wonderful time. And so it made sense. And I decided that USC was better for me than some of the other places where I was looking. And there are opportunities there that I'm sure could have been great. But I'm glad I ended up choosing to move to Columbia. It worked for me. And Stephen also brought up looking at professors that we have at UNF. And one of the people that helped me out was Heffernan. I didn't even recognize the connections. I actually did not do the research. Is Heffernan still there at
Still
UNF?
here.
Okay, great. She's wonderful. She knew Brian Glavey, and I didn't even know. And Brian Glavey was one of the coordinators in the program at the time at USC. And so they had a connection. So he saw my application. It said UNF, and he was like, wait, Heffernan. And so he reached out to Heffernan, and they made that connection. And they talked about me behind my back, and I guess it was successful. Successful conversations all around. So I was still students. Don't never burn a bridge. You never know who knows who. Academia is very small world, teeny tiny. So remember that even in your master's, even in undergrad, I've had people bring up undergrad experiences that carry through to the doctoral program. So you never know who's connected. But yeah, I say all that to say money is important, location is important. It helped me that I had family in the Greenville area and had a lot of family in South Carolina. So that helped solidify that this was the right place for me versus places where I'd be in like the Northeast or wherever. So it helps. With retiring, that's an interesting thing that Joseph brought up. One of the professors who everyone loved at USC, who specifically did children's lit, my first year, there were three of us who were interested in children's lit. This professor got a job to chair a children's lit program at a major university, and so she left. So that happens, and you gotta pivot. The pivot was fine though, because there were others, but she was like the premier one that several people came for. Thankfully, I had some others that I loved too, so it worked out, but there are some people who were devastated. So be aware, people make changes on a dime, and they don't even realize this is the semester I leave. So things happen, but yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, could you guys talk about what kinds of financial packages they offered? Meaning, like how many courses did you teach? Did you get tuition waivers? Um, can you maybe give us a ballpark figure of what potentially could be offered to people who are thinking of getting a PhD?
Yeah, I'm comfortable talking about that. So the graduate union is a big part of it, and thankfully, there are tiers of tuition stipends and whatnot in Florida, but they're fairly similar. As an English student, I don't know how they compete with STEAM or anything or engineering, let's say, right? But essentially, I get $10,000 a semester for the fall and the spring. I get $1,000 a year as a grant, some kind of scholarship. I don't know what it is, but I get that, and then I can teach in the summer for an additional $5,000, and then where does the rest of the money come from? I am taking unsubsidized federal loans. I get a little bit of assistance from my family. That's kind of the thing that very few people talk about or are upfront with, but graduate assistants were historically a very privileged position. And so, unfortunately, universities still expect graduate assistants to be male, pale, able bodied, well moneyed with family assistance. So if you're not all of those things, it just means recognizing that it can be challenging. And so I do get a little bit of financial assistance from my family. And then they don't, like Joseph mentioned before Chelsea hopped on, maybe a lot of programs don't want you working outside of the program. And yet, that's another one of those problematic issues, because then I find out most of my own professors moonlit and worked side jobs in their own graduate assistant programs. So even though we're told don't work outside the program, I then find out one of my a major lit professor last semester, he had to work at Popeye's Chicken when he himself went to Florida State. And now he's a full tenured professor, right? But that's something nobody told him, but then he had mouths to feed and a family to support. And um, but I mean, I think if you really want to do it, that you'll find the money, especially through financial aid through the government. It sucks to have to borrow money, but that's offset by if you end up being a teacher or professor and you teach for 10 years at a public university, that'll then the rest of it will get squashed. And that's pretty much. Oh, and then AP reading in the summer. That's another check that you can get if you're
Mhm.
willing to be part of the Borg and grade some papers. You know, I don't grade in my classroom the way AP does, but that is a significant. That's like $2,000 in the summer, and that helps a lot when I'm trying to figure out what to do in that lag between the end of the spring and the beginning of the summer session. So that's how I
Yeah.
make ends meet.
Stephen, how many classes do you teach as a part of the
Oh,
package?
yeah, so I teach two classes in the fall, two classes in the spring, and I really like it. I'm in a routine now. I'm teaching ENC 2135 for the ninth and 10th times this semester. It's very hard at first. Don't plan to get paid for every hour that you're working because you're not going to. But then as you get better at lesson planning and grading and you'll shave some time off, but I get paid for 20 hours a week in the fall and 20 hours a week in the spring, and I teach two classes, both fall and spring. And I love teaching. If you're in rhetoric and composition, you know that that's part of the game. I am empathetic towards the creative writers and the lit folks who maybe, especially the creative writers who maybe don't see themselves as teachers, but everybody gets a stipend to teach. People don't usually get stipends because of their creative writing or because of their contributions to literature. So we're all kind of in the same boat where we're getting paid to teach.
Yeah, and how many courses did you have to take at the same time as you were teaching two courses?
So at FSU, it's 9 credits in the fall, 9 credits in the spring, and then to get financial aid in the summer, 6 credits. And I will tell you flat out, most programs want you to take 5 credits in the summer, but if you need that federal financial aid, you might have to argue with them a little bit to get that extra credit because that's the difference of $5,000. So whereas the program just sees 5 credits as what you need for your teaching assistantship. Well, I had to say, well, I need a 6 credit so that I can borrow money from the federal government. And then once it's explained to people, then they realize, oh, okay, this 1 credit is a difference of $5,000 to you. This 1 credit doesn't really mean anything to me. So great, you can take another credit. So those are the things that nobody told me, nobody explained to me. These are things I had to navigate on my own and through the university websites. But usually your graduate assistant coordinator is going in terms of don't burning bridges. Chelsea's absolutely right. Your coordinator, the be on good terms with that person because they're mission control usually.
That's great. I love that. Joseph, could you talk about your payment structure and the number of courses you teach?
Yeah, so uh, I'm sure everyone would probably echo with this that it depended on this changed based on the different schools that we applied to. So we're probably mostly talking about the ones we accepted. But I it's actually a varying uh, teaching schedule based on each year of the PhD program at University of Tennessee that I accepted. So I think just recently they switched the first year to 1-and-1. So that's one first year composition class in the fall and one in the spring, and then after that it picks up. So it's about 2-and-2 after that, with maybe some dips down to one depending on um, which year of the dissertation you might be in later, or if you're in the year where you take comprehensive exams in the middle of the program. Um, so so on average, it's usually 2 and 1 or 2 and 2. And with that at UT, they cover the tuition for me, so I'm not paying for the classes on top of that. And this package and it helps in some other ways. So it included like the university has like a health center, so you get uh, for yourself. I don't think it counts independence, but in this program for yourself, you get health insurance.
Mm.
Um, you don't get parking, so you still have to pay an arm and a leg for that. But yeah, so that's the pay structure. And other another program that I declined, it didn't have the health insurance, and the you had to teach more classes consistently. I think it was like 2 and 2 every single semester, and you were getting less, less of a stipend. So that was a big the deciding factor for me.
Did you have to also take 3 courses? Is that for
Yes.
okay?
So with the courses that I'm taking, it's similar to what Stephen was saying. I take 3 courses for the fall and spring of the first year of the PhD program. And then the second year, I believe they have me taking 2 courses in the fall, 2 in the spring. Um, and then in the third year and beyond, I'm not taking any more courses. I'm doing other segments of the program.
Okay, good. Thank you. Chelsea?
Yes, okay. I was looking through my emails to find emails from 2018 to verify this because I've been out for a little bit. So USC paid for my tuition. So I got a tuition abatement. And then I was given a stipend of 12,800 on top of that. And then depending on how you do in the program, different things, you can get nominated by professors for different grants or fellowships, departmental scholarships. So over time, I would like accumulate things. My family was not able to help at all. So it was work, basically moonlight or take out loans, like Stephen brought up. And so I was one of the students who would sit in the corner of his office and say, okay, listen, I need money. So I need you to approve this job right here. So I worked at Second and Charles at one point in my PhD. I was a bridal consultant at one point at a bridal shop. But the job that probably correlated the most, I worked at the South Caroliniana, which is one of the oldest libraries in the continental US, and I was a research assistant. That was a lovely job. Sadly, that job went away with COVID because people were not coming into archives and doing a lot of in-person research. But it was great for the time I was there. So I was one of the people who went in and said, can you please approve this job? Can you please help me out here so that I can work and do the program? So you'll meet people like that. There are people whose families will just pay for them. I have friends who their families just paid for everything. So they had not a care in the world, had a credit card with no limit, things like that. But I wasn't one of those people. So it just depends on the situation with that. And again, it helps to know your professors and know people in your program who are on an admin and who are in staff, because again, you could get nominated for things you didn't know exist. Like even $500 will help when you're talking about classes or even rent with your like roommates and stuff, right? Those things help. And so you'll have scholarships depending on the university that are super specific. They're like, we want this to literally cover living expenses for graduate students in the humanities. So there's all kinds of things. But yes, insurance, I do not remember specifically. And I kind of lost access to that email address. But insurance was something we were required to have. I want to say that it was partially covered in some way. And because of the graduate student union, it eventually became covered, but I don't want to misspeak about the conditions of USC's graduate life. So if you're interested in that, I would definitely research how it is now in 2026, because I only know how it was, 2018 to 2022, 23-ish. So
Yeah. Was your 12,006, was that for the full year or was that per semester?
So it's I'm let's I I know we had to teach two. And it just says, I'm looking at the offer letter that they sent me. It says tuition abatement along with $12,800. So that could be the year or that could be a semester. I feel like it was the year. I
Yeah.
feel like that's what was going on.
I feel like I seem to remember that too.
Yes.
Joseph, is yours in the ballpark of 20,000 plus or a little more or
It's I believe the base is 26 for the year, and then I do not remember the name of the additions, but I had one or two additions that made it 30 for the year
Okay.
over. I believe it's set for 4 or 5 years. So then I think if the PhD was extended beyond 5 years, it would I would need to talk to them again.
Yes.
yeah. So
Uh,
Layla, what questions do you have?
One thing that has been kind of on my mind lately, and Dr. Nies, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding with the program at UNF is that it's not exactly required to do a thesis in the master's degree. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm curious. I know, or I believe all of you did your master's at UNF. Um, was that a hurdle in applying for programs? Did you do one anyway? How did you go about that? What was that kind of process like? Because that's been something that's been on my mind as something like, should I be making a plan to take that on if I'm considering a PhD, or is it something that's kind of supplemental?
Well, I cannot confirm this, but I am suspicious that not having a master's thesis hurt my application to Carnegie Mellon. But it did not affect my applications to ASU or Purdue or FSU. Um, I will say though, in terms and by the time you have to do this at the PhD level, you will have taken 2 more years of courses. You will have taken preliminaries. So I personally don't think the lack of a thesis is something that should be overly you should be overly concerned with. I mean, we're continually trying to make education more inviting, more accommodating, more democratic. I don't see the GREs coming back, so that's my 2 cents anyway.
Okay. Joseph or Chelsea?
I'll go. I also did not do the thesis. I would say if you feel driven and like I have the time, I'm going to do this, I want to do this, I say go for it because some universities will ask for a writing sample. It just depends. And so, especially with the like GRE and all that, like, things fading away of COVID and everything, it helps to have something already locked and you can just send that off. You feel good about it. You've had professors look at it. So that's something to consider. I don't think it hurt me at all. I didn't have anyone complain about it, at least not to my face. They may have had meetings about it with the admissions committee, but no one brought it up that, hey, you didn't do a thesis. What's that about? So I don't think it hurt me. Like I said, I got several programs, multiple offered some sort of funding. So I wouldn't worry about that.
Joseph?
Yeah, so I guess I would want to distinguish between having something titled thesis on your transcript from having a a strong writing sample. So taking a 1 semester period where you work on a master's thesis can be your way to make sure that you have a strong writing sample. Um, but from my understanding, the programs that I applied to, most of them, and like we've seen, like not everybody's situation is going to be the same, but most of them were pretty big on the writing sample. And again, this is for literature as well. I mean, this may not be the case for depending on the specialty you do, but they really wanted to see a writing sample of mine where I had done some kind of literary analysis in a longer paper. So I did do um, a thesis, but the colleges weren't asking me, do you have a class called master's thesis on your transcript, or was there a thesis involved? They were just pretty serious about seeing um, the best writing sample I had. So I used a thesis class to work on that, actually with Dr. Laura Heffernan. So I think maybe what we're learning is the key to getting into grad school is Dr. Heffernan. Um, so
So, one of the things I would say, Layla, is that what Chelsea did was she did an independent study.
Yes.
And out of that independent study, you developed a writing sample that you continued to revise
Yes.
even after you had graduated.
Yes.
And
That's exactly
so,
what I was thinking of when Joseph started speaking. I was like, oh my goodness, you had an independent study. Did not even think about it till you started talking, Joseph.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it happened to be with me. So
And it
I
was great. Great experience, 10 out of 10.
So, specifically, Chelsea worked in African American children's literature, and then she took that sample. So she built in some theoretical rungs. You had a really big reading sample. You really read in the field so that you could come up with something new to say. And when you got there, you developed it into a dissertation that, even if it was new material, you still had this body of work that you had already saturated yourself with so that you could really move forward. So I feel like in terms of a master's degree, it's always kind of general, it's supposed to be, but at the same time, towards the end, it's really helpful to take advantage of finding someone who you have a relationship with and go ahead and open that up. We do have graduate students who's gotten published. I know, I'm sure that's been helpful, but part of that work is, it comes out of this continual revision process. Keep going back, and get the professor to help you. So I think that's a big part of it. But all right, so we kind of covered the having a writing sample. Could you guys talk about your personal statement? Like, how did you think you had to come up with some kind of personal statement for where you were going or when you were applying? Is there anything you could say about the process of crafting that, or any tips you'd like to share? And that's correct, right? Did you guys have to have one of those?
I mean, intersectional research is really important to me. So, so the positionality statement is key. I, I think before we set our sights on doing some research, we need to understand who we are in terms of what our own goals are, what our motivations are. So I think for my positionality statement, in many ways, my positionality statement was a response to all of the readings that we did in our like composition methodology course at UNF, because uh, so many of the things we're reading, like Sal Inouye's 2019 Four C's address. Some things were aligning with things. Well, let me just speak more broadly. I think the positionality statement is, well, I really don't know what advice I have other than it's an opportunity to be really self-reflective and think about what your gifts are and what you want to do with your research. And here, this is my tip. In the positionality statement, I did just what Chelsea articulated early on in this conversation, which was in her second round of admissions, thought saw what she could bring to the university she was applying to. So my positionality statement was my opportunity to think about how I was a good fit to that university. So my positionality statements did shift a little bit depending upon the university I was applying to, because I was thinking about how I would fit with the major professors and the work they were doing.
Good. Joseph or Chelsea?
Um, yeah, I'll just say that the those kinds of statements. I saw a couple different names. I mean, maybe it would say something like position, or I think maybe one of them even mentioned like a like it was kind of combined with a teaching statement. But uh, it really depends on which application you're working on to which school. So you definitely want to read over the directions before you spend time, pouring out your whole philosophy on something. Read the directions for the application, because they might want different emphases on but these statements are I don't know about y'all's experience, but they're usually pretty short. I mean, comparatively, it's maybe a couple pages at most, something like that. Obviously, there could be variations, but these are relatively short. So you want to. That's why it's also important to make sure that you're emphasizing the things that they're asking about. So some of them were asking, why do you want to come to this school, and tell us about your teaching philosophy. Some of them were not asking about teaching philosophy at all, so I wrote a different statement for those. And it's kind of like your opportunity to put a almost like a personality to the application. I never met any of the people that I applied to before I sent in the application. So that was one chance to sort of put some personality, some humanity there. At the same time, not leaning too far into, life story, but kind of mixing that with what your interests are, your academic interests, how you approach um, the things that they're asking about.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. The idea is be professional, but show these people why they would want you as a colleague. Why do they want you as someone who should be in the field? Why do they want to award you, hopefully someday, the PhD? And you should be able to show them through this, again, like two-page statement. I'm someone who will be successful in this program. Take a chance on me. I'm not going to sit here for like 10 years and be ABD, like all but dissertation and not actually leave. Like you are actually going to be successful. You have goals. I brought this up very early on in the conversation, but I had a year in between because that first round was not successful at all. I didn't even specifically know what I wanted to do. I kind of just applied to programs. So I taught high school for 1 year. I taught in a public Title I school, and I learned a lot about myself and my philosophy on teaching. And so I brought that into the mix. I said that I took a gap year and I learned how to lesson plan well, how to build syllabi. I learned student relations and classroom management. And so I brought all those things into the mix, as well as the teaching practicum independent study I did with Dr. Nies. And so I brought up the research and the reading list I put together to dive into this field that I fell in love with at UNF. And so showing who I am and who I want to be, I think really helped to add, as Joseph said, personality to the application. They could see me sitting in their classroom and they knew I'd take it seriously and I'm not just there to kind of like be a academic tourist, basically. So yes,
Yeah.
everything that Stephen and Joseph said. Great advice.
Yeah, I think that it is, you are trying to convince them that you can do this, that you have, I mean, writing a 250-page dissertation. It can be shorter than that, but it's pretty brutal. And you really have to have a certain gene. It's not a gene, but it feels like it has to be a persistent gene that says, regardless of how many things I'm juggling, this is something I can do because you're trying to convince them. So I just want to ask you guys what you went through the UNF program. And so what was most helpful to you in terms of your preparation for what you are facing or faced in your PhD program? It could be classes, it could be experiences. What would you say was the most beneficial that students should take advantage of?
We've said it before, directed independent studies. Absolutely. That my mentor, all the work I did with James Beasley, so the mentoring, because half of what I do is teach, right? And I'm on board with that. I never expect to be in a position where I'm going to be doing research or not in the classroom at least half the time, and more most likely I may be in the classroom more than half the time. And so watching Dr. Beasley work with honor students and then getting to work alongside him and also do a directed independent study focusing on teaching pedagogy was invaluable to me. As much as anything else I did at UNF, that set me up for success. Also going to conferences, so going to the UNF conference, and that's low stakes. You can definitely go to conferences at UNF. But I would say conferencing and uh, and then maybe like the digital humanities, like the poster project. So just getting experience with what actual research looks like, mentoring, directed independent studies. That those were the things that helped me the most.
That's great. Thank you. Joseph or Chelsea?
Um, yeah, I guess I would say one of the um, experiences that I had in the UNF program that set me up for the success that I'm experiencing now, in that I'm in a PhD program. I was able to get accepted to one and starting to thrive there. I think it has to do with um, the opportunities that I took academically at UNF, and um, just to put this simply, like I try to take advantage of the very smart people that I was able to create relationships with, and take advantage of the fact that they are there to teach me. They are there to, talk to me about these topics that they are experts in, and that I may someday want to, or people on the other side of the screen may want to continue to study in their PhD programs. And that could be a wide range of things, whether it's the creative writing or the rhetoric and pedagogy, whether it's literature. Um, your professors are there because they're very competent, and and all of my experiences, they're very willing to help you to grow academically, so that you are able to continue on to something like a PhD program. Uh, just conversations I had in class with professors, being curious about things and talking to them afterwards, getting suggestions from them about how to uh, write better, how to research better, how to get deeper into a field that they're an expert in. Those kinds of regular conversations kind of helped me to build the the things I needed to successfully get into a PhD program.
Thank you. Chelsea?
I just want to reiterate the conferences for sure. Absolutely go to conferences if you can. The UNF ones are great. I remember being a part of those. I have friends who went to SAMLA during their master's and definitely early PhD. So if you ever have the inkling to try out for the going into the, I think it's South Atlantic MLA conference,
Yeah.
I would go to that. They're in Jacksonville all the time. So that's another way to get connected and network with people.
Whoops. We lost Chelsea. Hopefully she'll be back. Can I ask who's joining us on the iPhone? Is that you, Khalees? Layla, did you have other
No,
questions?
Dr. Nies, that's me, Marcus Ferrari.
Oh, hi, Marcus. Did you have
Hi.
any questions for our panelists?
No, all the information I've been getting so far has been great. I don't have anything specific to ask at this time.
Okay. Layla, did you have any other questions?
Um, I'm sorry, I got distracted because I didn't realize I'm actually sitting next to Marcus. I
Oh,
heard his voice next to me. We're in the
that's
library.
funny. That's funny. I love that.
Um, I mean, this information has been incredibly helpful, I do have to say. I I think, figuring out what my kind of general to-do list is for figuring out if this is viable for me right now, um, in terms of finances and everything. And it's been really helpful too to hear about what faculty in particular you all worked with. Dr. Beasley has been incredibly valuable as a professor since I started the program last semester. I taught high school for 2 years before starting this program, so I like really went through it. It was straight out of my undergrad. I did not know what I was doing. um, but yeah, so learning about the pedagogical approach that he kind of lives and breathes has been just revolutionary for me. So just trying to figure out where to take that. And I hope it wouldn't be awful for me to impose that I might try to email you guys questions additionally later.
That's great. Looks like
That's
Chelsea's
okay.
coming back. Hi,
So sorry,
Chelsea.
guys, my laptop died.
That's okay. Did you I can't remember where you were in your answer.
I was talking about SAML, I think. Just go to conferences if you get the opportunity. And
Yeah.
also, there's professors who I'm sure will mentor you, like Joseph and Stephen suggested. And I had colleagues who were publishing things like book reviews while they're at UNF. So that's
Yeah.
another excellent way to get research out there and again show what you're capable of as a graduate student.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's a great suggestion because book reviews are, something that's more manageable. At the same time, it helps you start publishing. I thought one of the things that we could finish up with here is that Chelsea, you you have been through the job search and you successfully completed the job search. And I wondered, Stephen, I don't know if you're at that point where you're feeling that anxiety or you're even thinking about such questions yet, because I'm sure you have some more time left. But I thought,
No, so this is second year for me, so I still have to get through the practicums and then the prospectus and then dissertation. So no, I'm not, I don't think it's a good idea to globalize. I think it's good to be aware of where you have to get to, but
Yeah.
don't be one of those grad students that puts your life on hold for 6 years. Like enjoy the ride and don't do things just to get on the CV. Like, yeah, lines on the resume are absolutely important, but there are people that go through their academic experience just trying to get things on their CV and let your be passionate and but no, I tend to focus on what I have to do and not worry about what's
right,
coming 3 years down the line. That would
right.
be paralyzing.
That would be paralyzing. And even when I graduated in 98, it was even then, it was not that. it was still outrageous and crazy. Um, but I would like to hear, Chelsea, if you could just share a few minutes about how you approach the job search without getting overwhelmed and a little bit about what your process was like.
Yeah. So step one is looking at job listings. Um, I like to say you have to make eye contact with the tough things. So you have to make eye contact. Some years there's 80 jobs in English and they're specifically looking for literature. And then you realize 10 of them are specifically in your field, and that's amazing. And sometimes there's 200 people competing for two jobs. And so you have to be realistic about how the job market looks in that year. And something that I had a mentor tell me when I was at USC in my PhD program is recognize that plan Bs and Cs are important. They're not evil. They're not bad to have. It's not bad to think, okay, am I willing to go into admin? Am I willing to do like more of a staff position, an advising position? Am I willing to go into high school ed? For me, I did not want to go back to high school. I was like, I do not want to teach high school again. And so you have to figure out what that is for you, because you might be like, actually, I'm really passionate about AP Lit. I would love to teach that. And that's awesome. So definitely think about that as one of your options. Anyway, so I put myself out there. It felt like 1,000 times. It was probably more like 40 something job applications. And it again came down to things like teaching philosophies, personal statements. Is the school focused on student learning through teaching, or is the school focused on research? So that's something else you have to ask yourself. Do you want a teaching experience as an assistant professor where they're focused on within the first like 5 years you need to write a book? Or are you wanting an experience where you're teaching more and there's less expectation of research, but because of that, you have a different type of student, right? So there's so many layers to what types of schools you're willing to apply to as a professor, because now this could be your life till you retire. I know people who are like, I'm never leaving. This is it. And I know people who are like, I'm here for 2 years and then I'm out, right? And so you have to decide where's the bar for you? This is at minimum what I'm going to accept if I get offers. I need this. I need to be close to family in this way. Or if you have a partner, I need my partner to be able to find a job, right? There's just so many factors. It's easier to do when you are single as a Pringle, no attachments, and you're just flying in the wind. I remember before I met my husband, I was like, I'll teach in Europe. I'll teach in Canada. I'll go to Africa. I don't care. I just want to use my degree. And then I met my husband. I was like, oh, this changes everything, right? So there's a lot of factors that come into play. And especially if you have kids. I did not have kids when I was doing this, but I have friends who had kids already. So anyway, job market, how did I approach it? Be realistic. Don't be too hard on yourself. Know that hearing nothing but silence from university doesn't mean that you stink. Does not mean that you're a bad candidate. It just means there were others who, Stephen brought this up earlier, who may have known someone. Sometimes someone's buddy gets the job. Sometimes someone's aunt, sister's, cousin's friend gets the job. And so you have to release it. Have good people around you, just like with comps, as you guys are talking about comps and all that, and your perspectives and qualifying exams and your dissertation process. You need a good community around you. You need people who can say, hey, Steven, I grabbed you a coffee. I was thinking about you. Hey, Joseph, let's go see that new movie. Like, you need people to pull you out of the hole sometimes, because it's easy to get super insular. It's the same with the job market. You can get so in your head about, they didn't even email me back. I was the perfect fit. I'm young, I'm ready, and they didn't even reach back out. That's okay. It happens. Again, market yourself. Do so in a professional way. Show them why they need you as a colleague. They need you for this position. With the job market, there's several rounds. So there's the big application pool, and then they'll do like kind of a perspective like, hey, we'd actually like to talk to you further about your application. Or they might just say, we'd like more from you. Could you send us another example of writing? Could you send us this thing you're talking about? You discussed this thing in your application. Could you send us a link? You said you did this interview. They'll ask you for more. But that first interview, At that point, you don't know if there's 50 people they're talking to or if there's 15 people they're talking to. And then it narrows down further when they say, okay, we want to do a second interview, depending on the school, or we want to bring you on. And so once you start doing visits, it's usually, corrective or wrong, Dr. Nies, around top three. It's somewhere, they're close to like top three. Some universities do a top five, but
Yeah.
at that point you're close, and so at that point you really can't get in your head. I visited 3 universities when I was on the job market, and that was nerve-wracking because the entire time I was like, I wish I knew where I was ranked. Am I number 2? Am I number 7? Like, where am I? So you can't worry about that. It doesn't matter where you are. You just put your best foot forward. And so you'll do, depending on the school, teaching demonstration. You'll do a job talk about your research. You'll go on so many lunches and dinners, depending on how long they have you. Um, you'll get a ride from a history professor, and then you'll realize this is an interview too, isn't it? It is. It's an interview. All this interview. I don't care if someone says, Layla, I'm going to carry your bag. That's an interview. They're interviewing you.
I
I had a
love
mentor say
that.
that. She was like, whatever happens is an interview. Do not put your guard down. Don't start bad mouthing someone from your program or talking about how annoying the doorman was. Don't, like, keep the mask on. It's a mask, unfortunately. You have to stay on. You are running for what you're running for president at this point, right? And so yeah, you go through all that, and then you get a call or an email, and you want the call because typically that's them saying, hey, we want you. And sometimes the email comes a month later and you realize, yeah, this is a late email. I didn't get it. And again, that's okay. So I don't know. I would probably need more specific question. I just said a whole lot of maybe nothing.
No,
But
Chelsea, it's wonderful. You just said a lot. And I think one of the things I would say is that so the MLA has a job list. You have to pay
Mhm.
for it. The Chronicle of Higher Education has a job list. It's free.
Yes.
And so I really recommend as people are moving through their degrees to just watch that list. And the reason to watch it is you're partly looking at trends to see, like, digital humanities is a really big thing at this moment. Is there any way you can tweak what you're doing to include a digital humanities course, a project, something so that you have the ability to argue for yourself? And job descriptions often will have like a main thing, but then they have all these other little things that they also
Yes.
want. And so I think not just being an 18th century specialist, but being someone who's nimble and who's watching the job market. A final thing I would say is that some of us find jobs, and I happen to be one of those people, not through any of these major search engines, but it's much more, someone somewhere needs someone at the last minute and they advertised through the site that's specific to their school.
Yes.
And that is how I came to UNF. And then I'll close by saying I graduated my PhD as I'm an Americanist. But they had a children's adolescent lit open at UNF, and I used to be a school teacher, and I had never taken a children's adolescent lit course, believe it or not. I started running around doing conferences, showing how all these other things fit into this larger concept of who I was as an academic, and I retooled. And so flexibility, being nimble, watching the market, see what are the trends. And like everybody has said here, use your professors. So thank you so much for being here today. This recording will go out to all of our grad students, and we'll probably use it for at least a couple of years to say, here are our latest students, yay. So thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Chelsea. And I appreciate both Marcus and Layla stopping in for the live version. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Take good care.
Sure.